Okay. Hi. Hi, everyone. Hi. Hello, 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 and welcome to my Fortune Friday. This is December 10th, which I can't believe. And today we have a wonderful, wonderful guest. We have Chris Ann with Tarot of Curious Creatures. Chris Ann, thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
Yeah, likewise. I'm excited. I love hanging out with you.
I know, me too. I love you too. Ooh, so, and like you are my inaugural, I'm doing this the right way this time, Fortune Friday on YouTube. So I'm glad that you're here. We will have people probably coming in, trickling in. I hope. If not, they will be listening in later. Um, so how are you? What's going on? How's life?
Life is good, incredibly weird, chaotic, strange, unpredictable. All of the things that 2020 and 2021 have been for everyone. And also confusing. I'll add confusing to that list. But the overarching is like breathing through it, and I'm doing okay. How about you?
I've actually it's been a rough week. I have to be honest with you. I rescued a cat about a month ago who was really at death's door, and we had a good couple weeks, and it was like heroic effort. And I was just shocked by how many people in the tarot community like stepped up, chipped in, and helped me out because I was like, this cat is going to be a lot of money. Like it was $800 just to figure out what the heck was going on, and we hadn't even done anything. Anyhow, the level of his need was too great, and it went very fast. Out of nowhere, he
I know this is for you. This was yesterday, and Catch was so beautiful. And you were such a mother to him at the end of his days. You're going to make me cry because
Yeah, sorry, it's
and he's so beautiful.
So yeah, he said goodbye in our arms, and we have him buried. We have this little grotto that's now become the cat grotto. I have like a cat statue, meditation statue, and I put some candles out, and I'm going to get a little bench. It's just going to become our little place where our little angels are. And it's been really cool because I don't know about you, but I do a lot of like pet readings. So I did pet readings of him both when I first got him, and then another reading basically the day before he passed. And of course, death showed up in both of them, including a Queen of Swords. And now I'm starting to think that this was someone who's on the other side who's waiting to really catch him. And now I want to do one more, just make sure he's doing okay. So I thought it was really cool that we were going to be talking about your deck, which is that marriage of animals and people, because this is so salient to what I've been going through. So that's been my week. So yeah, I think that's going to lead me right into the question that I had, which is, where did this idea come from for you? Like, what were you like, person, animal, connection, here we are.
Well, I mean, I am an animal lover as you are. They really are the best of us. I say us because I consider them to be such an important part of my family. And they're the best, cats, dogs, those are the ones that we're so close to. But animals are just so sensitive and so connected to nature. And they have this connection still with nature that I think so many of us have lost. So I am like all about animals in general. And then this particular deck, actually, because it was so different than the other decks I was doing, I mean, I started it December 2019. So right before the fit hit the shan, so to speak. I started this deck, and we had our two teenage nephews in the house with us for a month. They came, I think, Boxing Day, and they were here for the month to go snowboarding with us. And so we have these two teenage boys in the house, and this is kind of like right with their energy. This is when I was percolating with the idea, and I just started playing. And I think just having two teenagers in the house changed the energy of the house so much. Because it's all, what do you do with teenage boys? We're going snowboarding every day. We're being silly. We're putting stickers on everything. We're like, they were like having like like my husband introduced them to like the North American concept of manwich, and they were just like having these manwich, like, you know, like these silly sandwiches with a, you know,
Wait, where were they coming from? Where were they coming from?
chili. So
Oh, they're from Chile. Oh, manwich.
it was just all of this silly sort of like guy stuff was happening in the house. And one evening they were playing something on PlayStation with my husband, and I was just sitting there with my computer and I was playing a little bit with them, but I got bored a lot quicker than they did. So I just started playing on the computer with images, and that the parrot, there's this African gray that's a parrot in the Justice card, and that card was the first card that I created in the deck that just sort of came to life while I was sitting there with them laughing in the room. And my youngest nephew looked over and he kind of looked at the screen and he smirked, and I could tell that he enjoyed it. He was just like, "What are you doing?" and that just kind of started there. I didn't expect it to be a deck in the beginning. I was just really playing, you know.
Well, what made you decide to do the African gray parrot for Justice? What was that just like it just got downloaded, or was there like a rhyme?
So with Justice in particular, there was not a reason for it because it just happened so organically. I really like African Greys. I've often looked at African Greys. I've often thought maybe I could adopt an African Grey, but they live for so long and there's so much responsibility that I dare not, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was just looking at images of African Greys. That's really how it started. And then I was like, let me just play. And I had these leftover images from the Muse Tarot.
Mhm.
So that particular image, if you notice the desert in the background, it's very deserty. It's one of the only images that has that deserty sort of vibe, which was in the Muse Tarot. So this was kind of like the first one that happened after that transition. So it has a little bit of a Muse feeling, even the colors of it.
Mhm.
And then, you know, I kind of found the body to match the head, and then I was like, oh, maybe I could find arms that will kind of, it just kind of looked like Justice, you know. There was, and they're just also so smart. So I mean, it made sense to me logically because they seem so much more intelligent and calculated than a lot of other animals. So
Yeah, that's true. Someone was telling me about an African gray that like was taught like just a huge vocabulary. I think it was African gray.
Absolutely, yeah, it is. And I can't think of what the name of the bird is, but you can look it up online. And the bird is incredible. Why do I not remember his name? And they repeated, so it was a researcher that repeated the study, and she was able to do it with other birds after that bird, because that initial African gray has passed already. But the bird was able to, what color is it? And it would say which color. She would point to objects. Is it round? Is it square? What color is it? How many? So it wasn't that it was just that, like, I think it's called echolalia, just like when they're just repeating something. It's not trying to repeat. The bird was processing our language, and it's the same set of objects. And she would say, what color? How many? And you would give the right answer depending on the question. And I mean, that to me, it blew my mind, because here we are like, how intelligent are animals, you know? And we're always, humans, we always put ourselves at the center of the universe. Like we're just the biggest, most amazing things. And it's like, have we ever learned how to speak in parrot? They learn English.
Yeah.
They prove to us that they're smart, but we've never learned to like whistle in their language.
We should.
Right?
We should.
Much smarter than us, because they're adapting to our language and learning how to use it, you know? And I say that for all animals, even though, you know, like dogs, same thing, you know?
Yeah, there was this one dog where they like taught him like a huge vocabulary, and he like presses on buttons that have like words. It says the word when he presses on it, and it's far more intelligent than just the training. Like he's really responding, and you're just blown away by it. I really believe that all animals are far more conscious and present and intelligent than we give them credit for. So I have a whole system where I live. Like I feed raccoons, possum, like there's a whole system I've got going on of food management and helpfulness. But I have this area where a bunch of crows come every morning, to come get some dry cat food, and I whistle, and I started putting it out, and I whistle the same way so they know when I'm coming. So that's the first part of my evil plan. The second part, I'm like, now when I get them consistently, I'm going to put out a little tray of gifts because I want them to give me gifts. This is the master plan. And then I was like, oh, and then I have Crow Tarot, and I'm gonna put that out, and then I'm gonna put gifts on it, and what they take is gonna be the Crow Oracle. Like I've got this master plan, years in the making.
It's like a lifelong aspiration that hasn't come true is to befriend a crow or a raven because they're just so incredible. I mean, I've seen them close, but the ones that actually are friends with people, they come. Like I've got chickadees in the backyard that I feel like we're getting pretty close, but but nothing like nothing like a corvid or something that's as intelligent as a crow.
Yeah, I really loved your death card in this deck that you used a vulture and also a oh my gosh, a what's the word? The monarchs, yes. And those are two my favorite animals, really. Like I used to volunteer at a wildlife rehab clinic many years ago, and there was a black vulture there who was just, I loved him. He was so sweet and gentle, and I love them. They get such a bad rap. And I was actually thinking about, like, not this year, but next year, maybe going to Mexico to see the monarch wintering grounds.
Oh.
So yeah, so like that card that has both of those animals that mean a lot to me. I was like, that's such a great combination and choice, I thought.
Thank you. Thank you. I know it's that card my assistant Val and I, we laughed so much when we made this card. I'm trying to find it out of my deck here. You never find the one that you need when you need it, right? We laughed so much because I knew that I wanted to use a vulture. And of course, we're working with like what's available in stock photography. So we're looking for all of these birds, and the number of vultures heads that we used on the totally wrong bodies in order to get this perfect combination was incredible. And some of them looked so sad and so not like this, like it ended up being this kind of like statuesque sort of vulture. He's kind of whimsical and maybe even like he knows what's going on in his own way. But we tried so many, like I will share the images. We will eventually share them because there is this one, and he's like almost like in this like biker leather jacket, and his face, he just looks like so like the wimpiest try hard death card that you'll ever see. We laughed a lot when we were trying to make them because sometimes they just really didn't work. We had like tryouts for the different cards.
Yeah, I want to see all the tryouts. I want to see the ones that didn't happen, like the blooper reel or whatever. I would totally love to see that. So that actually brings me to another question I was thinking about. Like, what cards what were there some cards that you were just like, yeah, this is so easy. It just flows. Like the use of the African Gray Parrot sounded like that was that like instant download. But were there any that you were like, this is just for some reason it's just not coming through. I'm having to play with it a little more. I'm really curious.
Death was like that as well. It was super fast. I just knew what I wanted, and I knew the animals, and I knew the vibe. One of the ones that I found difficult was the Hangman because it's a bat, and it was like it was too logical, and it made too much sense to have like the Hangman as a bat because bats hang upside down, and I felt like it was just too obvious. So we tried a lot of different things, but I just kept coming back to it. I just in the end it was like, well, no, that is the one that works. So why am I trying to force it because it's too normal?
It's funny you mentioned that because I wanted to talk about that card specifically because I was like, it's so cute. It's so clever. But also I believe that's an Australian fruit bat, right?
Oh.
Which is the bat down under from us. And I was like, there's layers here. Like, aliens, like, but yeah, I think that is the Australian, that they look like little puppy
Yes.
faces. They're just like so like, oh, they like nodding little fruits. Just
It,
can't handle it.
it was finding for us sometimes just like what is the right expression and which ones could we change the expression on, because we had to often like manipulate the faces even though they still look like the animal faces. We had to manipulate them enough to have human emotion or
Mhm.
find images that had the touch of human emotion and then accentuate them.
Mhm.
So with that card, it was just, you know, I really kind of, it's almost like I ended up going back to the bat specifically because it's sort of this like, it's sort of this strangely spiritual animal in a way, and it's because there's just so much like occultish sort of attached to it, and some people either there's this love-hate relationship with it, people have strong feelings about it, and it's sort of obscure and we don't always see them, and they're finding new ones and they're finding new things about them all the time, and they have that echolocate, or the their way of sensing the world felt very hanged man-esque, with their sonar.
Mhm. It's interesting. I don't know if I lived in China for a while, like my second language is in Chinese, just mentioning the background. But
Really?
yeah. Like I lived in China and my second degree is in Asian studies, and then I had to learn Mandarin for it, la la la.
I was studying Mandarin and I had no idea that you spoke
You,
Mandarin.
you
I
said, oh
had no
yeah,
idea.
are you doing it now?
Yeah.
Oh, Tai Hala.
That is so amazing. I love it. So I'm gonna lean on you when I have some
Oh,
pronunciation.
it's all the time. Yeah, you're doing that for acupuncture, right? Like you're studying. Are you doing it in conjunction with that, or is it its own thing?
It's on its own.
Oh, cool.
It was, yeah, it kind of one thing led to the other because I am totally like on a little off on we're going on a little tangent here, but I am in the middle of studying my acupuncture degree, and with the idea that maybe someday I'll want to travel and learn more. So that requires having a really good grasp of Mandarin, which I don't have.
Yeah.
So
You should talk to Jonathan Daly is in the chat. He has a degree in Chinese medicine, and he practices acupuncture. I don't know if you guys probably know each other, but
no,
oh, you don't? Oh, yeah. So him and I are old college buddies, and we both like studied Mandarin. But I don't think Jonathan went to China. I don't know. You have to correct me, Jonathan, if I'm wrong. I don't know if you went to China with your undergrad. But yeah, I was there. I was in Xi'an, and I did an ethnography on Chinese or just Western medicine versus Eastern medicine practices, which led to my master's thesis, which was like how international students in the work that I was doing are less healthy in the US because they are completely unable to navigate the insanity, which is the American healthcare system, and that they would wait until they got home, even nursing really painful things, because they were just like, I can't deal with this. I'll wait till I get home to the summer or whatever. So it's so cool that there's all these like interlapping things that are going on in this conversation.
I had no idea. This is like you're blowing my mind right now. So that part of you, I love it.
Oh, well, the point that I even got to, I was talking about is like that in China, and now I can't even remember the name now that I'm like on the spot. But if you look, like if you go to like any Asian store, like Chinese store, and they have porcelain, bowls and stuff that you can buy, look for the bats. They often will print bats. And then like if you were to visit like Beijing or any of those, the forbidden temples, you look at the emperor robes, they often have bats stitched onto the clothing. I have to look it up. But in China, like, or Chinese or Mandarin, the word for bat is tonally similar to, I think it was fortune. And that's what I love about Chinese is like there's a play on words on a tonal level that you really can't achieve in English. And then you have the character system, which like adds a whole other layer of beauty. So you know, you hear a poem and it has this tonal kind of cleverness to it, and then you read it and it's just visually beautiful when you see it. I just love Chinese. It's such a cool language, you know?
I am woefully underprepared for this conversation as much,
I'm sorry, I don't want to put it.
because,
I didn't know we were going in this direction, but anyway.
because I am also such a beginner. I've been, you know, I started studying about 8 years ago. I first tried to study acupuncture 9 years ago. I did my first 2 years, and then I quit, and then I went. So I've just recently gone back. And when I was doing it back then, I jumped in, tried to get some Mandarin, because of course all the herbs are they're not English when you're trying to look up stuff, and then just everything, you know, life changed. I was so busy. I was so not in balance. And I was sitting in class learning about like this whole theory of this beautiful balance that, you know, everything is based on balance in that um, practice. And I was so not in balance. I was rushing. I was doing design. I was like starting Sacred Creators Oracle. I was just a mess, you know, like running in late, losing marks for being late, papers flying everywhere, like that sort of state. Sit down, late for my quiz, probably lost a couple percent. And I was like, okay, we're going to start our lecture on balance. And I'm like, this is a joke. I'm totally out of balance. Like, how can I pretend to be like, I'm such a good student and learning about balance? And I'm so out of balance in my life. So I promised myself then that when I was ready and I could find that balance and maintain that balance while studying, I would go back. So I just finally felt like I could do it.
That's so cool.
You know, like I'm
So
ready.
cool. Can you see the chat on your end as well? I don't know if you can, or if I'm the only one that's seeing chat. But Jonathan says that the person, I'm like, you two need to talk. You two need to talk. But yeah, he did go to hospitals in Hangzhou in China when he went to acupuncture school. So I just remember going there and I'm like, wait, what? What is this thing that's like sucking your skin up? Like, what is going on here? And just like the idea of balance, like you said, that it's like, you know, Western medicine is so like drop the hammer, drop the hammer. And this is like, but how do we bring this together? And that's what I love about Chinese cosmology too, like the I Ching system and, you know, the elements. Like most people know, you know, their Chinese zodiac, right? But often they don't know that just as important is the element within the zodiac, right? So you have 5 elements in Chinese, you know, cosmology, like, and then you have the zodiac. And so it's much more complicated than Westerners believe. And all of it ties in beautifully. Like when you do feng shui, like all of it is a gorgeous interlocking system that like in the West, it just feels like we're trying to like shove things into other things to make it all fit, but it doesn't, you know. But in the traditional Chinese models, it does, and it's just so beautiful. And I wish Western esoteric, how do I say the word? Occultists. Okay, that's easier. You know, would dabble a little bit more into it because it's so pretty and
It's so
close
poetic.
to nature. I love that.
Yeah, my artist loves it, you know. And I really don't even know, like I have no, it's really strange because this time I'm studying with no real north in mind. Like I don't really at this point, I mean, who knows, things may change, but I don't see myself working full time in a clinic. Like I don't see my path as that at this moment in time. Maybe that will change as I get deeper into it, but it's just like I know that I want the understanding. I know I want a little more of the philosophy. I know that it feels good in my system when I'm learning it. So who knows what it is? Is it going to become a part of what I don't know. I don't foresee it becoming. I have no idea. I'm just following the muse. Honestly, I'm just like, I don't know exactly why I feel so called to do it right now, but I do. And I'm just trying to trust that calling is the calling that it needs to be, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really great. Let me see. I got some feedback here. Sorry, I'm still working out the kinks of this system. I think it's beautiful that you're embracing it. And just be like, I don't know, man. I'm just really wanting to, and that's the thing, right? Like, why do we have to? why does it have to be a goddamn goal all the time? Why can't we just be like, I enjoy this, and I'm curious about it, and I want to see, I don't know, how I feel about it and enjoy it. What's your sun sign, Chrisanne, if I may ask?
Well, for sure, I'm a Virgo, and my ascendant is Virgo, and my moon is Gemini. All come from Mercury.
Yeah, I was thinking like she's gotta have Gemini somewhere prominent, because I'm a Gemini sun, so for me, it's like anything that like I'm very Geminian in that I can pick up things very fast and like get the gist very quickly. Um, but it'll be in like all these wide ranging different places. Like right now I'm reading a book on raising chickens and then a book on, trauma, like, and it's all over the place. So I was like, I sense a kindred spirit in this way, in this regard, you know. Um,
Definitely. I love that. And I like that you're, it's like, I call it dabbling. I almost feel like as a creative, I feel like they're ingredients, I don't need to go like down this, some styles like are really deep on. Tarot is one of them, right? Like I want to go deep on that, but other ones, they're just like, it's just some ingredients to like knock my brain in a new way, to make me, because you can't not grow new connections when you're learning new things, right? Neurology. So we're just able to like learn new things, add to the synapses that we have there, and then you're going to think about something new that you never thought about before, or you're going to be curious about something new, or you're able to find joy in something new, right? Like there's so many reasons why I think just dabbling and learning and being curious and remaining curious is it's like a life skill and a life goal for me,
Same. In my local, like we have, I don't know if that maybe similar in Canada, but we have like the local community colleges will have extension courses like you can take, and there's like a class on how to make cane chairs, and I was like, oh, I was like, cane chairs, yes, baskets, yes, like it's just, yeah, we have to, I feel like that was more common in the early generations of like that kind of hobbyist mentality that I'm going to learn how to like carve wood or make this thing, but now we've all gotten so wrapped up in hustle culture
Totally.
that it's like we have to make money off of it. Like I learned how to make soap a couple of years ago, and people always, oh, it's so good, you should sell it. And I'm like, I will never sell. Like sometimes I get ideas, I'm like, no, like I'm like, I will never sell this because I want it just to be fun and a gift. I don't want to have to hustle everything,
Yeah, and it's we are even every single entrepreneur I know struggles with that same sort of thing where it's like you learn something new and all of a sudden it's like, how can I turn that into money? How can I make this a real mindset? But it can be so bad for us because we don't have time to relax and just like, how do you self-care because you can turn everything into work if you want to, Yeah, we're taught to niche, and I'm all about I'm like a generalist, and I will say that to people all the time. Like I prefer to be a generalist because then I can talk to different groups and talk to different things and not be, not that there's anything wrong with niching and knowing and being like, I also really sometimes look at people who are so in love with their one subject and that's their lifelong passion. And I get a little bit jealous because I'm like, why couldn't I just like stick with something that I love forever?
Oh yeah. It's interesting about the niching concept because I think really now that we're so reliant on social media and online spaces for marketing of those hustles, that the algorithms force us to niche, specialize ever more. But I don't think the human brain is made that way. The human brain is a wonderfully beautiful generalist. We were hunter-gatherers. It was like, oh yeah, a little here, a little there. But we are now trying to force ourselves into these. I mean, you and I were kind of having this conversation earlier. It's like we're coming back to that, like these like mechanized, like we are having to change ourselves to fit the algorithms of something that's very, very alien to us, really, that AI concept. Oh my God, I don't want to go down that. But you're right. You're right. You know what? I had a question. Can you tell me about your tarot origin story? Like, what was the story that started it all for you?
Tarot. So as far as like decks, or as far as just like in general? General?
Just in general, like what kicked this
Yeah.
everything off? Yeah.
Well, when I was about 15, I got in a lot of trouble in high school for drinking. And so my parents whisked me off to Nova Scotia to my grandparents for the summer. And my aunt was a little bit older than me. She's 10 years older than I am. And so she was working in Toronto that summer. So I slept in her bedroom. And my aunt had all of these amazing books. And she had, all of these books about, she was really into like Celtic mythology and fairies and like dragons and all of this stuff. And she had the Book of Runes, like, the old school Book of Runes from the 80s, Ronald Blum's.
Yeah.
So she had that set. So it wasn't actually tarot that started my fascination with divination. It was runes. So I kind of like was playing with all of her books, reading all of her books, got her runes, got into them, brought them down to the beach, and just spent the summer playing with her runes. And by the end of the summer, I had collected enough little beach stones that were like the perfect size, and I still have that set. And I just markered on my own set and left with my own set of runes. And so that was, it was not even tarot that was my first love as far as divination. And then my very first deck, well, I wasn't allowed to have tarot in my house. I just, it wasn't, okay, it was never that my parents said you're not allowed to have tarot, but there was just enough comments about like, that's kind of scary, or, it was just, I grew up in a house where that was just a little bit of a,
But runes were okay. Like runes are okay, but tarot wasn't. Or
I think runes. It's funny because when I was 15, because they were on the shelf with all of the Celtic stuff, I literally looked at them and I was like, oh yeah, that's Celtic. I had the idea that they were fully Celtic. That's the origin of runes because they were with all that stuff. And in my mind, they were probably for 10 years, I believed that to be true. I think my mom probably like rocks with markings on them. Like they're just not as in your face as like the death card, which was like do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Understand tarot, and tarot's come so far, and our understanding of it has come so far. But
Yeah.
we're talking about the 90s, like.
Yeah.
And so I had my first actual tarot thing that I found a used book. It was just like an old used paperback book that was a Rider-Waite-Smith guidebook that I found it in like a used bookstore. Someone had already marked up all of the pages. I wish I still had it. I gave it away years ago. And now I'm like kicking myself because I would love to have seen what they wrote.
Yeah.
Like their own notes on all of the things. It was marked up like, underlined, highlighted, marked up. And then I actually made my very first like anything that I ever held in my hands deck. I photocopied it at my high school library, and I just had paper from that guidebook. So it's funny. Someone else asked me this. It was actually Dave from Tarot and Tequila, and he was like, wow, you've been making your own decks since the start. And I never put two and two together. That my very first deck was like homemade, and my my very first runes were homemade. But yeah.
You still have the homemade tarot deck that you photocopied that you No, I would love to see that.
It wasn't anything. It was just black and white photocopies. You know what I mean? It was nothing special. It was like some keywords written on. I wish that I still had it though.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I think origin stories, like in the book that's coming out, people are already sick of hearing about it. It's not even out, but I talk about how the origin stories of tarot for like you as a person informs kind of reader that you are, like the narrative surrounding it, whether it's a narrative of like having to break through family or society ideas about it or not, or your own, how you're coming to it, what you think it is. I think those stories are really important, those origin stories.
And I think it does totally inform. I mean, I think about like when you're like, whether it was like what you were bringing to it. And for me, it was like, I had to get past this idea that they were something scary.
Mhm.
because that was where I was coming from. But I was super curious and I wanted to know and I wanted to dive in. But they were like, oh, this thing that I'm like, I'm not sure if it's like, do you know what I mean? I had to kind of get through that for myself. And so, but it definitely has everything to do with the way that I read the cards now.
That's so cool. And I mean, as you're saying that, I'm just like, wow, yeah, there's that Virgo Gemini kind of energy that like, oh, and like to me, I always see Virgos as it's like safety is important for a Virgo, like that they feel safe to come
Yeah.
out. And but then you have that Gemini curiosity that's like driving it, driving it, driving it. So that's such an interesting dichotomy, but that is so cool. Yeah, I have to really think about what you're saying, like later, and really ponder your words, like breaking through that like fear or something, and how that is continues to inform and reverberate through everything that you do.
Yeah.
I wonder if that has had an influence on your decks.
I'm sure it has. I'm totally sure it has because that's had an influence on my life. I am someone that I will say, like, some people are like, um, some people just have this innate courage and they have this innate, it's courage. Like they're just not afraid of things. And I am someone who carries a lot of fear naturally. Like I carry a lot of fear all the time. And people often say, like, I've had people be like, "Oh, you're so brave and you do these things," and I'm like, it must be nice to not have the fear. And I'm like, I have so much fear.
Yeah.
I carry a lot of fear with me, and that's something that, and so I'm very aware of, like, I really believe in that. Like, some people talk about like making choices based on fear or love, and I have to do that consciously because I carry so much fear. So then that also does have an impact on how I see the world and how I work and how I hope I show up, and all of those things in the decks that I create too, because they're often like there's this underlying sense of being responsible for the choices that we make and being responsible for being aware of like where are we coming from, where having that responsibility to make our own path
Mhm.
on, am I working towards something? Secret Creators Oracle is all about that. There's a lot of like all of my decks have that kind of woven through them.
Mhm.
That,
Mhm.
okay, am I going to let fear or negativity or scarcity or whatever it is that you want to call it gobble me up? Or am I going to say, okay, I'm carrying this fear and I'm going to face it. I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to do what feels right to me anyway. And I have to work past that fear. You know what I mean? Like I am, yeah, I do. I carry a lot of fear. Oh, I don't think that it's super apparent, but it is the truth.
I think I would be one of those people who you would call courageous. Like I don't carry a lot of fear, but it's not because I'm courageous. I think it's because I have a stunning lack of imagination of all the bad things that could happen. I just am dumb. I'm like, well, why not? And then I'm like, and then what happens is I'll leap and then be like, oh crap, now, oh, I gotta extricate myself. It's really just a lack of imagination. um, but I think whether you're a more careful person or a more spontaneous person, I think we all have resistance,
Yeah.
and that shows up. And I've been doing so much thinking about resistance. Excuse me, and how different, because I do a lot of business coaching, which and I really tell my mentees that the number one like difference in who makes it to be like a whatever making it looks like to them,
Yeah.
um and those who don't, is not their technical knowledge, it's not their reading ability, it's not because they don't know how to use Instagram, it's all the inside game, all of it. And but people don't realize that. They're like, well, if you teach me like the secrets of how to like the Google or whatever, I'm like, I could teach you that, but if this here, like if you don't really get into good relationship with your resistance and get to know how it operates so that you can sidestep it, that's going to be the derailer,
It
no
is
matter who.
100% like it's like 95% mindset on just about everything. I fully believe that to be true. And you know what's even crazier? And I'm just gonna dip a toe into that AI conversation we had offline.
Okay.
Even if you're thinking, because you're talking Google, right? And you're like, oh, you want to beat the Google game or you want to beat the algorithm. It's like the algorithm knows you. So if your mindset is right, then the behavior that you're making online, it gets it. And it's going to drive those things to you, which makes sense with that. Because even that's not even like energy, because I believe that on an esoteric level to be true, but now we have that on a ones and zeros level to be true. So depending on the things you're
quantum level, true, right?
the things you're typing into Facebook and deleting, even like they keep it all, right? So all of that stuff is creating this picture of who you are, like on the computer side of things, in AI world. Then it's like the mindset is everything, and it's becoming more important because of AI. That's what I was trying to say, and I don't think I said it very eloquently, but yeah,
You just blew my mind right now. I just never thought about it exactly like that. Honestly, that's so true. That's so true.
Like vibrationally and energetically, it works because those are the behaviors we take, and that's what the computer then translates.
Yeah, I feel like there is like the volume distinction is problematic a little bit, where it's like, the AI is driving towards, well, it's hacking the very human desire of drama, wanting drama. Like we're all social creatures. We're like, oh, what's happening in this, so it's driving us to do that more. And then people hack that by always like, being more dramatic, or they have a more cancel this, whatever, don't gatekeep that. And it's like, I have seen tarot personalities come and go over the many years. And many of them try to build a following on a platform of dissent and revolution, but they don't stay, because that dissent and revolution is like not stable in the heart of it. Like if we're not coming into a new thing. So for example, I've seen a lot of tarot people come in and be like, right away sucks. This is the new way, or like, and it's just this very loud kind of energy that gets a lot of like, it gets a lot of momentum. But just from my experience, I haven't seen those personalities last for a long time. And so coming back to that mindset of it really is only through community and then with the community, we can be very innovative without having to be decisive. Yeah. And that's the way I see it anyways.
It's like mindset. I'm just doing this because I'm just feeling this on such a visceral level. It's like mindset and heart set. I use the word heart set a lot lately because I know that there's like this, there's just something that is true, that comes from our innate desire to empathize or be compassionate or help one another or, support one another. And I think that those things, like I sense that in some people online, and those are the people that I want to support. You know what I mean? And those are the people that I'm like, oh my gosh, like I want to connect with them, and I want to work with them, or I want to share their stuff. And it's like there is this just underlying humanness to it, that we are lucky that we can see, especially intuitive people, right? Especially sensitive people. And I do think too that, like, for me, I'm taking another screen break. I'm taking another screen break in the holidays. I've got one on my schedule. Like I do this religiously now, where I'll just like no screens, because I find that even my practice, my own tarot practice, my own ritual in the morning, all of it gets much louder when I'm not being inundated with messages from the outside in. You know what I mean? It's just like, I'm just going to tune into me. And I find that my intuition, and I don't know if it's that things have gotten louder, or it just seems like they have because we're all online a lot more, because we're not socializing in person as much, right? That may be true. But I find that if I don't take these breaks, my intuition itself, my ability to tune in, gets quieter, because my own intuition feels like it's competing sometimes with all of the noise from the outside in. So it's like, okay, I need to just take some time off of screens every so often, just to like center, get tuned in, feel into like, okay, where's my heart? Where's my heart without all the other ideas and opinions?
That is so, that's so important what you just said around intuition and screens, It really, really is. And it's hard because it does feel like there's something driving this. And it's just, but we have to. I find it really hard to find the creative white space that I need to come up with some of my best ideas. And when I give it to myself, the gift of that, then it's like, oh my God, idea, that can be really, really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So in the chat, Christina says, she's talking about her, I don't know if you can see the chat, but her grandmother read Greek coffee grounds. She says she always saw money, and then she didn't care about Christina's tarot cards, which I think is funny. And again, that's like an origin story or narrative that like drives forward what we do. I love the one thing. Oh, I want to come back to your deck actually. But the one thing I really was struck by, like looking through your deck, is how much it kind of reminded me of like the Egyptian pantheon in many ways. Like, you have Anubis and Ra, right? When they're all like these animal-headed, human-bodied gods. And that is a motif that has been part of human society for a really long time. Like, I in one of the classes I talked about the Lamassu, which was Babylonian, and it was and it is the head of a man, the body of a bull, or the body of a lion. I don't know. It's but it's basically the Wheel of Fortune. And the Lamassu was like a guardian. They were guardians. They were like spiritual warriors. They had the wings of an eagle. So basically, yes, wings of an eagle, maybe claws of a lion, head of a man, body of a bull, or some thereof. But that's so ancient, so incredibly ancient. And I feel that we're really moving back more into venerating animals, which is really important. So I love that you've really just super modified and made it so bright, and like that very, very ancient concept of like that we're not really that separate. I just think it's so cool.
They really can be our teachers, and they should be our teachers, in so many ways. I think there's there's a lot. I'm not the only person that's got, the humanimal sort of imagery, that there's quite a bit of it out there right now. It does feel like it's this nod back to kind of like the ancient gods, and I do kind of feel that too, like this sort of undercurrent of like, there's this need for these ancient systems again, or or veneration again, right? Like we're just, being in awe of something greater than ourselves. Because I really think that a lot of us sense that we're losing that. With the crumbling of structures and the crumbling of religion and the crumbling of all of these things in society. It's like, well, what do we have that's old that fits, that we need right now? And it's that kind of awe and wonder and awe of things that are greater and more important than ourselves. I had a dream just before making the deck, late 2019. Earlier in the winter, and it was a dream, and I had there was, and I'm not huge, I don't know a ton about deities of all different pantheons, but in this dream I had Minerva and Sekhmet and Kali all show up in a dream.
What?
Very intense. It was an intense dream. It was an intense kind of humanity dream, And Sekhmet was powerful and amazing and quite scary. I didn't know much about. I must have read about her, and then it kind of was in my unconscious memory and came up in this dream. But it was very powerful, and it shifted kind of some of my thinking on, some of these older ideas, and then just how the world kind of, when the world starts like falling into this seeming, it's felt like chaos, for so many of us. It just kind of made sense to go with that as well. Although the deck doesn't have that feeling at all. The deck is very joyful and playful and silly. You know what I mean? It doesn't have this sort of like heavy feeling. But a lot of the animals, when I was creating the deck, it was funny because I was really wanting it to be super lighthearted, and there were messages that came through when I was writing the guidebook portion where, I had like a polar bear for the magician as an example. And I was like, oh, it's the polar bear, and it's fun, and it's got the all of the 4 element symbols kind of like up in the air. And when I was writing the deck, the messages that were coming through were kind of like, wow, wait a second, like this is not just lighthearted, because this polar bear is the magician, because the polar bear is like leaping from like their house is melting, basically, the ice. And so they're actually magicians every year trying to find more ice as their environment melts. There was a lot of messages that were coming through that were really quite serious, and the animals had a lot to say.
That is mind blowing. I love all what you're like. Yeah, like you just need to stop for a minute, and they're just dying to talk to us.
Yeah.
When we were burying my little friend yesterday, was it yesterday? Like the days are just so in the land around us for the last like a few weeks, there's pileated woodpeckers. They're huge and they're becoming very rare. And I've been tracking them for weeks now. They've never actually been on my land. Like they're around and I'm hearing them and I can spy them with my binoculars. But yesterday, as we were burying our friend, it's at the base of a tree. And I look up and there's a pileated woodpecker knocking. And I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you for letting me know he's okay. Like that there's just this connection. And I know, and I'm like, that pileated, and I've not seen pileated on my land before or after ever, but yet it's at the actual tree. I'm going to decide that that's a message.
Totally. I would agree with you 1,000,000,000,000,000,000%. I mean, it's like there is a magic, from the animal kingdom that when we try to own it, we can't. You know what I mean? Like that's why I love African Grace, but the idea of having it, I don't like. I mean, I don't know. It's like I want my humanness wants to like own it and have it every day for me and have it kind of there. But there's this other part of their magic, especially animals in the wild. No judgment on people that have African Grace. I don't want to do that. Just for me, it's not going to work. But animals in the wild, there's just there's a special magic that they have that, really when we take the time to connect with them, especially if you are, someone who reads cards or runes, they can be the most amazing oracles, like there's just so much there that they can teach us. And I love that it showed up for you. I think that's so beautiful, especially if you've been sort of tracking it. And then on that day, it's like, I would see that fully as a message from your little patch, like, okay, I'm here.
Yeah, it was just, I mean, my husband and I looked up and we were like, thank you for letting us know. Okay. So we're at time, but so people can find your deck on Amazon, of course. Is there anywhere else you may want to direct them to or anything that you?
They can get it. So right now there are no fake copies as far as I know. So Amazon is great, you know.
Oh, you know what? I was at TJ Maxx not too long ago, and your deck was there. Like they're like making decks and selling them for like Christmas. Like TJ Maxx started selling all these tarot decks.
Really?
Your deck was there. Yeah, I think I took a picture. Yeah, the Light Seers. And I was like, what? I was like, you are so mainstream now. I was like, she's at TJ Maxx. And then I was like furtively buying a bunch, so I could give them as gifts. Yeah, but those aren't pirated. I think there was some kind of Hay House deal or whatever. I don't know how it works, but I love that because I want anyone's deck to be like easily accessed, it's yours, especially the Light Spears.
Thank you. Thank you.
You need that. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Final question. Is there anything you're working on now that, I don't know, anything going on? Like, you don't have to say too much, but.
You know, it's funny. This is the first time in my very long creative career that I spent about 6 months in pause before I went back to school in September, where I was like, what am I doing next? Like, what is the next project? What am I jumping onto next? Because there's usually like 4 or 5 projects like knocking on the door as I'm finishing something up. And I didn't have it. And I didn't have it because there's part of me that's really just feeling into this very strange liminal space that we're still fully in. And I'm like, what? Because everything that I want to create something that's useful, and I want to create something that's meaningful. And I have such little grounding on where we're headed next or what we're going to need next that I feel like I couldn't possibly create anything of value because I don't know what I need. So so I'm just sitting with that, and I'm sitting with that question of like, and there has been definitely in the last, ever since I started studying, of course, and the creative ingredients started coming in and my brain was not on what am I creating next. New ideas have been coming, but I'm not 100% sure that the next thing I create will be a deck. I'm feeling like it's probably not a deck. I'm feeling like I may try the same sort of messaging in a different vehicle. I don't know what the vehicle is yet. Maybe it's a deck. I'm not sure, but I just feel like to jump into a deck, it's like a year or more of work. Like it's a huge commitment, and I really need to be 100% like knowing what I want to get out of it, where I'm headed, what I hope people will have. And I'm like, how could I create that? I love that there are thousands of other tarot decks coming out right now and thousands of other creators who are feeling that call. And I'm just not at the moment. So I can't force it, I could, but I don't.
No. Don't force it. We'll wait. We'll wait for whatever it is when it needs to show up. Thank you once again. And thanks to everyone who was in the live. It was wonderful seeing your comments and having you here. And for those of you that are listening in later, I hope you enjoyed our little chat. Next week, I will have Christiana Gaudet. We're going to talk about why you need a tarot conference right now, whether it's online or you're going to come in person. There's something really beautiful about coming to conferences if you can make it. So we're going to talk about that. Chrisanne, thank you so much.
It was awesome to chat with you. Thanks for just meandering with me. We just talked about everything. It was fun.
I know, like I do these just really honestly as an excuse to just like have an hour of hangout chat with people. It's really wonderful. Thank you once again, and everyone have a wonderful Friday, and much love to all of you. Bye now.